That's glitchy. Wonder if it's glitchy on all my platforms. All right. I don't know if you guys can. I don't know what's up with this. Welcome to Smashing the Party. This is I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again from the browser. So it's all, we're shooting from the hip again. So we're majorly shooting from the hip tonight because I don't even have an agenda. I do have an agenda that I want to talk about, but it's not political per se, and I'm not really going to go off, I don't think, in any capacity, just because I want to talk about kind of what's been going on in my head with this whole stream, what's been going on with like the world and where I see my voice in this whole thing, right? Some meta level fucking conversation today. And I'm also going to be playing around with this thing that I just clicked on literally right before I started the stream. They had this little banner up that said, "Hey, try the new studio experience." I mean, I just couldn't resist trying the new studio experience. So, I clicked it and I got a whole different view. So, I don't know what that means. I don't even know where my sound is for my why that you didn't hear my transition, but I'm on the new studio experience. This is great. I should be able to see chats and everything else. Anyway, all right. So let's get into it. Yesterday I was on time. I did it at 10:30. I think I posted twice. We're trying everything new. Incrementally, if you look at the stream this week versus last week, we're definitely looking at better quality. I've got enough light where you can actually see the dog hair on me this time, which is good, and discolorations in my shirt. So we're getting lighting better. I also got some, camera action going on. Why does this matter? Like, you're like, fuck, Nate, I just want to hear you like go off on shit and rage and like talk about things you're passionate about. Why are you talking about this technical stuff? Because like this whole thing is about like the presentation and what's appealing and what's not appealing. And eventually, I hope to have this be appealing enough where my art can get some views from just not other people other than myself, and the voice and the ideas behind Smashing the Party will get out, right? That's the whole point. But it's art. And so why am I meta today? Mostly because I took time today to look out the landscape and see what's out there. And there's a lot of folks out there. If you know me from before, you know my forte, or my what I believe is my strength, is just to be able to ramble on, and I can talk about something, and I could probably put together 3 hours. I hold in high esteem Rush Limbaugh only because of his voice, not because of his politics. But again, what he did was extremely interesting in that he was able to do that day after day after day. I like that. Now, we don't have the attention span for that these days, and so I'm still forging ahead with that viewpoint that there's a medium for that long diatribe where you check in maybe an hour and you turn them off while you're hammering away. Look, that's how I heard Rush Limbaugh. I worked at for the family business, and I was doing freaking flooring, and that's what they played. So I listened to Rush Limbaugh like religiously before even. Look, I was a Republican too. I mean, this is all real things, folks. This is why you want to listen and see where this goes, because I'm telling you, uh, I that's where I'm forging, and the art's going to be such that it's going to be limited viewing, and this is something I'm prepared for. And the reason I say that is because you have to kind of talk yourself through this. Like, when you look at Jake Paul, he had 8 years where he had 4,000 subscribers. All right. And now he's fighting Mike Tyson. Again, That's 8 years of nobody looking your way. And so that's what it takes in these algorithms. And so you have to really be focused on your message and what you're putting out, the content. So I start looking around and seeing what's out there. And there's a lot of anger. And there's a lot of, like, when you look at the Ben Shapiro rise, he was kind of this guy that was, so he had a fan base that just liked to repost his YouTube videos where he destroyed people. And that was his, kind of rise, was like the algorithm picked up on the anger of Ben Shapiro destroying people and eviscerating this person. And it's really just cut ups of him kind of rambling through with his kind of his just blah, his word stream, very articulate word stream that he weaves, and he pounds you with these blah emotional points. And he kind of rose up from that. And so there's something to it. And now he's kind of a force to be reckoned with on Facebook. I blocked him. I swear on my life, I blocked him on Facebook because I was getting pounded by these spots. Conspiracy Nate checked in and said, "Why are you getting pounded only on Smashing the Party?" That's also the domain that I lost, that they stole. So I'm talking about political retribution. And I was like, I noticed that when I blocked Ben Shapiro, they went down. It's a coincidence. I'm not suggesting at all in any way, shape, or form that he's affiliated with these crazy spam bots on Facebook. But when I was going through my conspiracy, I was like, all right, this is coming from somewhere. And I noticed a downtick. No correlation. I'm throwing it out there because I, see patterns, and I go crazy when I see a pattern, and I'm like, why is this happening? Facebook, by the way, just going to side note, Facebook knows about this bullshit. When you have a page or a business page, and for whatever reason, I'm on somebody's radar, and I get probably 4 or 5 messages that say, hey, look, you've posted something that's controversial and you need to delete this. And they have a fake link that wants me to log in. Of course, they take my credentials. That's how they've been getting a lot of people. I get them daily, every day. And so it's like they're new accounts. I blocked that account and anyone who creates that account. So every day, new accounts are coming on Facebook. So the reason I say all that stuff is like, when you start to put yourself out there, you have weird things like that happen, and weird comments and people that hate on you. And so Ben Shapiro kind of had this fan base that generated, kind of clicked into the algorithm, and he utilized that force, and now he's a force to be reckoned with. And I'm not going to say that he doesn't have detractors that are protecting his base. So that's where I come to that large, leap of leap to conclusions where I'm saying, all right, maybe there's something there. So no, I'm not in some weird world where I'm important. Maybe that's real, but again, it just bothers me that they're coming there. It's the only page that really gets hammered. It's a political page. So it just makes me think that the detractors are other people. Anyway, I don't know what he does to protect his base. I'm not suggesting that. So I should probably stuff off. I'm not even trying to get the ire of Ben Shapiro or his fans, or even suggest anything, because I don't want to impugn him. I want to talk that, I've talked about that before. I don't like him, his ideas. He's something else, but it's not him. So anyway, all right. Back to what I was saying. This, I'm looking at the competition, kind of looking at this landscape. Everyone's doing a podcast. Everyone's got a live stream. Everyone's got something to say. And it's like, holy shit. There's people that I follow a dude on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I don't care how you take this, but all he does is chop wood. But I don't know why he makes funny jokes. And it's kind of interesting and cathartic to watch the wood. I mean, he's a good looking dude. I'm not even suggesting, like, I don't care where you take it. I do follow him, and I'm proud of it because I'm like, he's just kind of inspiring. He makes fun of the fact that people follow him because he's chopping wood, but he actually does provide content. Like, I learned more about axes. There's different types of axes, and there's different kinds of wedges. And depending on how that wedge, the handle, whether it's fiberglass, it might reverberate, whether it's wood, that was kind of there's a lot of innuendo there, but I'm saying I support this person, and I don't know why, but damn it, where was my point? I really got into the accent. It's really good. I forget his name. I don't even know his name, but it came into my feed one day, and he's kind of like he's kind of always jabbing his people as that are hammering on his comments. Maybe that was where I was going. Oh, competition. So, I'm looking everywhere. I follow a lot of weird stuff, and there's a lot of different things you can do to attract kind of different things. Obviously, there's a whole movement on Instagram of aesthetics are important to drive content. Those algorithms on Instagram, all the other places, they don't work. So a lot of the folks that kind of rose up, Charlie Kirk is another guy who used to follow me on Twitter way early in his career. We followed each other, and he didn't have a lot of followers. I remember he was kind of this guy who said stuff and just was I didn't have a lot of appeal for him. But again, I turn him around, and here he is. He's huge, and he's got this whole thing going on. So, and there's an appeal to that kind of conservatives can support their media folks really well. Liberals, I would say, or people that maybe are progressive, are like, what, they're cheap, or maybe don't have money, and they're not going to support an organization or it's going to go. And so, but conservatives will throw their money at those folks. And I watched kind of Charlie Kirk rise up, and I rised him. He kind of had a good community. The other thing that's interesting is I look at everyone having a podcast and everyone doing this. Oh, that's where I was going. The specific niche of the axe guy was just interesting because all he does is throw axes, and it was a niche, but he runs he's a whole career around it. So there's a lot of competition and all that stuff. And so what I start to think about is like, what am I doing this for? And then I go back to the art, I go back to the expression, I go back to the therapy, but I also go back to, how do you make it interesting without kind of compromising where the fuck you want to go with it? And so, I've entertained different ideas of engagement. This rant thing is just always probably going to be me, but there's other things that I want to do to kind of spice it up. But again, it's so cheesy. Some of the interviews and just like trying to get people, going to Trump rallies or trying to get them on camera to make them look stupid. I don't know. I don't like that kind of content. I mean, it always works. I watch it. What I really do like, though, as much as it sounds, I would love to have the kind of content where you're like doing things for people, and like that's the engine. But how do so you have to kind of go out on a limb. Somebody was telling me that you start out with like $100 or whatever, and the reason I like that altruistic kind of giving thing is if you can grow that, then you can target and make change that you can see and watch without any administrative bullshit of giving to another charity or whatever. So I can see it. I can go, all right, that's where it's going. And of course, there's administration with anything you do. But so I look at that, that you got Mr. Beast who's out there. And again, I'm not a YouTube person, although I missed that train. I grew up in pre-Google, and I was there watching YouTube be sold to Google. But missed out on the whole fucking influencer on that thing. It's just amazing to kind of see these apps that go from an app to like these billion-dollar entities that support these ecosystems. So you start looking at the landscape and realize everyone has a voice and everyone has something to say. And so then, part of it's making the quality, the feed, the sound, all that technical shit. So it's important that I do this technical dance the whole time, because you have to have a certain bar, which I'm not suggesting I'm hitting, but I'm always trying to get to that point where it's like, all right, this fucking feels better, it looks good, and it sounds good, right? And so it's kind of weird how I spent today kind of looking around at everybody, and it just sucks the life out of you a little bit. It's like, what the hell am I doing? Like, there's nothing unique. Like, I mean, I'm yelling and screaming. I have a unique story, yada, yada. And then you start to go, so I was like, okay, whatever. That's bullshit. But you start to realize that, it is that 4 years or that 8 years of nobody. I went through I had a little bit of pop, and I didn't have anybody out of followers. I was actually just looking at the data. That's what's interesting. I didn't have a lot of followers, so I didn't care about the followers. I just like to know that people watched the video or at least saw something. So it was weird. I didn't want them to watch it, but you want people to respond to art, right? You need to have that response. I think that's the part of sharing it, right? I don't know. I don't know. I'm still going back and forth on trying to make sure and purify my reasons for, even trying to elevate it, which sounds kind of like a guilt-ridden bullshit. But I just want to be careful. I do want to open it up to be much more about what we can do. There's a lot of talking and yelling and screaming that I do when I watch the videos, which is great. I vented. I was losing my fucking mind for real. In real time, I think, just at the prospect that this happened. This being Trumpian elected, by the way, that's the crisis that I'm talking about. If you're like, what happened? What happened? You fucking Trump got elected, caused you trauma? Yeah, it did, I guess. I watched the videos and I'm just like veins popping out. I mean, it's kind of exciting too, I guess, but whatever. So I look around and that's why when I've talked about Rush Limbaugh being kind of where I would want to go, you look at Alex Jones, the crazy conspiracy, and his early work was raw, just crazy, right? I mean, he kind of like was memed all over the place and took it all the way to the bank. I'm not suggesting, again, now he has a voice where he's getting sued, and of course he opened his mouth and did dumb shit. Not suggesting that's the way to go. But it's interesting to see what people kind of will elevate. And these are conservative folks, right? Jon Stewart kind of came back into the fold after going to Apple, finding out Apple censored him. And then, he had to go back to the Daily Show to get actually uncensored is how I look at that scenario. So, that's a liberal voice where he kind of, started through comedy and just kind of was never really didn't start out political. In fact, there's a lot of people on the left, I feel like, that weren't political to start that are now voices, or at least sane voices. Bill Maher, I'm not going to say Bill Maher is a sane voice. Sorry, I'm just not a fan. But anyway, so you look, and those are like kind of high old school media folks. So, but when you're looking at the landscape of the voices out there, I'm looking at folks that are actually generating ideas. You got the Young Turks, who's kind of on that edge of progressive, very, very much kind of hardline left. But I mean, I appreciate a lot of the perspective. And then you've got, the folks that he has on there all kind of align with him and those viewpoints. And it's pretty, and then you kind of slice yourself into this demographic that Young Turks has done, where he was mainstream for a little while on MSNBC, but it was a little bit too ruckus. He was kind of, I feel a sense of, I relate to how he kind of processes his brain. He kind of stutters a little bit, but he does get his point across, but he's a little scatterbrained. But I liked him. And then you got Mehdi Hasan, I think that's how you say his name, who I saw him on British TV before he came to the States. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy was incredible. Like, he just needled people the right way to ask questions and got them talking and got them to talking themselves in circles, even when they thought they were being logical. And I was like, whoa. So he came over, got shut down, got mainstream. MSNBC got shut down as soon as the thing that shuts people down got talked about, the whole Middle East debacle, which maybe I touched on a little bit, but I'm not going to go into it. I'm not like worried about being canceled. Just there's a lot going on there. So he gets canceled, put back into the, wherever he's going to end up, independent. And I just wonder, it just seems to be better to have your own independence. I mean, Ben Shapiro, I guess he's got the Daily Wire and all the stuff, and he kind of, is that what he's got? He's got this enterprise behind him, but I mean, he can kind of go where he wants. And so I think the new media folks kind of have the portability. Jon Stewart had to go back to Daily Show. He didn't have he had his own following, but that wasn't where he grew his base. I don't know. It just seems like, And of course the distribution that you get automatically with going to a network, I'm not suggesting there's any sellout. I'm just kind of going through sharing the process of understanding the landscape of all these folks that do have voices that influence and kind of put themselves into the trajectory. I mean, that's not even talking about real politicians and real, and folks that actually have policy implications. But I'm not looking at those folks as being models for that. So you start to look at the new media, and that's where, Jon Stewart, I feel like, is like he's kind of still an artifact of coming through being pushed up and hoisted above by the network and not grown through an organic. I think there's a different kind of community that supports Ben Shapiro or Jake Paul or these other folks, even Charlie Kirk, this newer kind of. And it's interesting because I do notice that digitally folks are very, very loyal. Digitally, like people that don't know me, but digitally, if somebody discovers something, whether it be Delilah or Smashing the Party, if they discover me digitally, then they don't know anything about me, and they just literally just like the content, that person's very, very loyal. And that's an interesting, I don't have a lot, but I find that those, so I used to say, if I could grow this to be 1 million haters, then you have a voice. But even if you have truly like 1,000 folks that are just kind of die hard, I truly believe, and I'm not saying you're extracting completely money from them, but I think you have enough to generate an engine where you can get value and then provide enough value where those folks are kind of reciprocating. And I'm not good at growing a community. Like I'm kind of a lone. I'm not a lone wolf, but I don't, I shy away from groupthink really quick, even in small circles. And so community building has always been a struggle of like the larger concept for this. Like, how do I do that? I'm kind of weirdly awkward in certain scenarios, unless I'm, drinking scotch and I'm like, woo. Um, so so I start to look at like, and that's a similarity that all the folks have in the new model, is that they have this community of folks that support them, whether you like it or agree with it or not. So, and I think that there's something to be said where it kind of harkens back to the older, and maybe this is how podcasts is. Podcasts, the whole thing for me that escapes me too. But it harkens back to the storytelling, like of radio days, where I think there's still an appeal where the listener becomes kind of engaged or bonded with the speaker. And now you have like this, and I think that's what the new media brought in a different way. And I think if you're hoisted up through corporate kind of inorganically, you don't have that new feel. This may be completely meta, all right? And I know that. And that's why I said I'm going to share where my brain went today, because I was like, all right, you got to make sure that every time I'm doing this, I'm kind of I still keep north, you know what I mean? And so it was important for me to understand what is out there and what people are doing and what's different about people or whatever. Wait, see, I don't even have, I don't have the logo on that side. All right, that bothered me. We'll talk about the logo sometime. So, but one of the things I find that's interesting too is that writing is also something that I enjoy doing, and that's something that does differentiate a lot of folks, having the writing background. I'm not a writer, but I do like to write, or I think I like to write. When I do, I like to read it and put it out there, and I don't mind people criticizing it or even give me feedback with writing. Actually, it's interesting. So, but I think that is also another way to kind of distribute content, right? But like, you're talking about an attention span right now where you look at the data and you can see people just don't have time. So part of my secret sauce, if you will, I just want to be that bedtime thing. And that's why I'm going to continue the nightcap thing. I just want to be like, all right, I'm going to, it's maybe 10:30 is late for people, but maybe it's not. Maybe they just kind of fall asleep to it. But I'm not being weird. I'm saying like, that is like where I feel like I can still have my medium where it can be long-winded and people can like drift off into it. I don't know, man. Now that I say this out loud, it sounds kind of fucked up, but I just think that maybe I overthought things. I don't know. Whatever. I had to share it. Um, because the whole point of this is like really kind of trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing when I'm not doing this, right? I mean, obviously I'm working and doing stuff. I make money and doing all that shit. But trying to look at the landscape and like all the folks out there, and then I kind of get a little bit confident because I think when I think about Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro, or and those guys are conservative younger folks than me, and obviously, um, I mean, I don't feel like the content that they put out or the things they're saying are interesting or challenging kind of any kind of even what they like to call the conservative intelligentsia. I think I heard Ben Shapiro say. Like I don't feel like they're pushing any envelopes for conservatives either. And so I think there's an opening to actually have serious conversations with some spice to it. There was a show that I remember I used to watch with my dad growing up. It was called Crossfire, I think it was, with the guy with the glasses, and it was like there was Bill. Was it Bill Buckley? Somebody that I remember. You know, my dad was a conservative, but I would say my dad was an old school conservative, like which is kind of aligns with new progressives in some weird way. I promise you, it's weird. But so I remember watching that show though, and I didn't like politics, but I just remember love the spiciness, and I remember thinking, wow, watching them go back and forth with their arguments that seemed off the cuff. Maybe it was scripted, but it seemed like they were just going back and forth and just like I remember just being amazed at that. And I just didn't care. I remember he would watch it and Bill Buckley, I think it was. And I remember thinking that guy was the smartest guy I ever thought. I mean, just the way he always poised himself and answered questions. I remember that. So I don't know why I was going there. Talking about my dad. Uh oh, well, that I think that just the nostalgia of watching that show and kind of the spice of seeing two people going back and forth with their ideas was amazing to me. So, I don't I'd love to have that. I know I'm an asshole to argue with, and I don't really respect there's some of the viewpoints that I would challenge. I don't know if that person's capable. I feel like this is the real obnoxious thing that's going to sound obnoxious. If you have a viewpoint that you're backing Trump, I don't understand. Like there's something's different where you definitely have different qualifications for what and I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying the perspective's so twisted that I would get angry. So maybe that's what I need, right? Maybe that's how I break my mind and understand the Trump voter. Ultimately, is that they're not racist. They don't hate me and hate America. I don't know. Anyway, so landscape, kind of going through this wave of trying to see what's out there and understanding where my place in the world is, seeing all the voices, the axe guy, the niche, everyone's talking about everything. You can have a podcast about keys. And so, I've had people say to me, "Oh, you got to find a niche, you got to find a gimmick, you got to do something." And I don't know what it is. So I've thought of different things. So I'm just going to try to make content cooler and better and base it off of what feels right for myself. And so part of what I like to do is have this be kind of automated, one man showish, and then be able to have, when I have time, build out other stories and content. Obviously the after hours, this I'm not even talking about the other stuff that if you don't know, what is it? Like, you got this, and then we've got Smashing the Party. That's the parent thing that I do. And then after hours, where that's logos looks a little better, is really where I want to that's kind of not really tied to the show at all, by the way. Not at all. Um, where I can kind of do whatever. It's not tied to my anger, let's just say. Um, But anyway, so I look out and I was a little bit disappointed. I was just frustrated because I'm like, oh, there's nothing to me that's inspiring out there. I feel like, but I don't feel like I'm not doing something unique, but I'm also like, no one's really putting together a straight up hour rant ramble that actually makes sense. And maybe I'm not either, by the way. That maybe that's why maybe I won't either. Maybe that's why the content doesn't work. I mean, people go to church and they listen to an hour of whatever every week, right? I mean, maybe maybe I go undercover as a pastor for a while and practice and raise a flock and then just do a bait and switch, or maybe I actually become a pastor and like do real Christianity, like just for shits and giggles, just to show how it's done, and I create a flock of these people that just like do like real Christian shit. I know it's crazy. I don't know. I don't look. It's been a long day. I know I'm not talking about being a pastor and raising a flock of people to do Christian shit. I'm not doing that. But maybe that's the secret. You know what, Dad? You said I was going to be what? A politician, an attorney, a salesperson. Well, I think you forgot Pastor Nate. I think that's what I'm going to do. It answers all of my problems. I need a community. Okay, we've got a flock. I want to be a leader. All right, I'm basically a cult leader. People are going to listen to me and do things based on the good stuff that I'm talking about. We've got yes for cult followers. I mean, I'm not a cult, or maybe it's not a cult, but maybe if I go undercover, then people are going to think it's a cult. All right. See, it's a long day. Anyway, so those are just random ideas, but as you can see, pretty much everything's on the table when it comes to figuring out how to grow a community, including undercover Pastor Nate. Dude, I could kill it. I think I could kill it. Oh, and especially if I could Holy Spirit, like, because I used to be able to, you can. No, I'm kidding. All right. So anyway, listen, it's getting late. I think I'm gonna wrap. I went a half hour, and I went meta. So tomorrow, I'll talk about issues. There's a lot going on, by the way. I'm not trying to look. I'm not trying to minimize the fact that the world has a bunch of shit going on, and waste your time talking about some bullshit tech and Nate's little freaking meta identity crisis for the fucking podcast stream, whatever the hell. But it's important that you understand the genesis, the journey. You hop on for the ride, because I know you're already following me on Instagram, which I don't care about Instagram as much. Just TikTok and YouTube is where I need followers, because you care enough to see this train wreck go big enough where you can actually watch it. Look, you got to watch, if you really want to see the train wreck, you got to watch it rise, help it rise, and then see what I do once I'm at the top of the train. And then, no, I'm kidding. Um, but I want to kind of get serious, because I know I'm joking and making light about the fact that community, and I think it's important to look at the competition and the folks that are out there. And I look at those folks that are using their platform for ideas that are counter to me. I look at that as competition of ideas. Folks that are like, on the same side and pushing the same viewpoint, I don't really look at that as competition at all. I look at that as, so it's for me, it's more about the idea kind of trampoline effect, to be honest. So, I do see the importance of, and I don't want to minimize any of those folks that are doing it. Like Charlie Kirk, like I said, at one point he followed me. I followed him. It was weird when he followed me. I thought it was weird, but because I thought we were totally, I might have actually been the one to block him or something like that, because I got angry. But I respect the game of, they're putting their ideas out there, and whether they're supported through Russian propaganda or conservative think tanks, it's not easy to put yourself out there and just kind of say something. Even Candace Owens, God forbid, she's been hearing it, but from both sides. But and rightfully so, in my opinion. But I mean, it's not easy to be those folks because, as you can see, I'm bashing Candace Owens. I don't know her. I'm bashing her ideas. Let's just say I'm trying to do, at least not her, but her ideas are stupid. So, and there's people that are going to say my ideas are stupid. And of course, you got to ignore those. That's really the thing that took me the longest, that I really had to come to terms with when I came back, was like, all right, ignore the fucking negative, because the negative comes usually from people that I know. And that's the most painful. So now, I mean, you can fill my inbox up with negative. I promise you, it's not going to lash out unless you're doing it publicly and you're trying to, tear me down publicly. I'm going to be okay with it. I'm okay with negative, as opposed to where I was before. That was kind of devastating to me that people I knew were saying these things. So you look at these folks, I'm going to wrap. You look at these folks out there that are putting themselves out there, that are putting their ideas. And by the way, it's not even politically correct to have comedy. Comedy right now have this political correctness to it, which is fucking bizarre. I can get into that. Maybe I'll talk about that. Another personal experience for me getting into stand-up comedy. Even that is not really an open forum anymore for folks, because you kind of have to say things a certain way and you got to worry about pissing people off. So it's not easy to be walking on the edge of politics where no one wants to talk about it. It pisses people off. You're trying to get your voice out and all people are like, fuck, dude, I don't care. I don't care. So you got to make people care. You got to make it interesting. And these folks, regardless of the fact that I agree with them, have done that. And they're out there putting themselves out there, and they're, again, disagree vehemently with most of everything Ben Shapiro does and says, except for when he was anti-Trump for a couple days. But I do respect the game, and I respect the fact that he's got a lot of independence that folks like Jon Stewart don't have, and didn't have, and kind of they rely on these networks that to rebound them, which is great. But I don't know, it's different. So anyway, so today, again, my topic of the day was basically generated from my looking at the landscape, realizing there's a lot of voices, trying to figure out where I want my art to make the most impact, how I want to make the most impact, what I want to be with the content. And I'm doing this, I'm working during the day, I'm doing this at night, and it's my expression. I've cut back on my therapist because this is my therapy. By the way, I still have therapy. Calm down. Just spacing it out a little bit. But I enjoy it. So I need to kind of keep that focus of what's out there and also where I'm going, and understand where the place is, because otherwise it's going to be nowhere. And I think the whole goal for my art, if you will, is to express and motivate and inspire in some fucked up way, right? Maybe some F bombs will get you off your ass. I know my mom's probably not proud of it. I'm sorry, Mom. Nothing but love. This is not her fault, that I talk this way. She did not do this. But anyway, so look, we're gonna come back tomorrow. We're on 10:30. I'm hoping this actually streamed. So I did the same thing I did yesterday, and then it posted twice. So I'm gonna sit back and wait, because yesterday I posted it and then all of a sudden it showed up. I'm gonna sit back and wait, see how it goes, and then I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that it actually did what it's supposed to do, like it did yesterday, and magically just showed up, and I don't look stupid for posting twice. Right? Let's get closer. Can we get closer? We'll say bye. Bye. I think that's it. No, but I'll be back tomorrow. Sorry for the digression at the end. I think the technology is important. I think it's important that I talk about kind of my journey. So if you didn't get your, kicks out of tonight, that's fine. It wasn't necessarily for you, but for me to kind of process my thoughts and talk about kind of where I ended up today. And tomorrow is Wednesday, so I'll be back. We've got 2 more days after today. I'm excited. Look, this is consistency. So far, I've done it every night. I said I was going to do it. We're on Monday through Thursday, 10:30 till whenever, 10:30 Eastern time. Follow me on TikTok, Smashing the Party, on Twitter, all the platforms. You can follow me on all of them. I need you on Twitter and Instagram, or Twitter and I need you on TikTok and YouTube. Why doesn't that work? Oh, there we go. All right. I need you on TikTok. I need you on YouTube. So like I have like 35 followers on YouTube. I know. And I have like maybe 255 on TikTok. And I started out with 0. So good job on TikTok. YouTube, not so good. Smashing the Party. Don't follow me. Follow Smashing the Party. I'm boring. Follow Smashing the Party. Anyway, all right. We're gonna wrap. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for again. If this is like if you've checked it, there's a couple of you. I can tell. I know people are watching. I appreciate it. Now let me just see something. My brother said I have to keep the comments open. Is there any comments? No comments. Maybe nobody saw it. We're gonna hope people saw it. Yes. There's 2 people there watching right now, I think. Anyway, listen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we'll be back at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's it.